So thank you so much for coming to this meeting to hear about the Interstate 405 Pavement Rehabilitation Project through the Sepulveda Pass. My name is Lauren Wallachy, and I'm a Public Information Officer for Caltrans. So we're going to start off tonight with a short presentation and then answer some questions. First, I'd like to introduce the project team. Kenny Haw is the project manager, Sam Tatunchian is the resident and construction engineer, and Diari Ahmed is our traffic management expert. So if you have a question during the presentation, please put it in the Q&A and we'll address those after the presentation. There'll also be an opportunity for people to raise their hand and ask their question aloud as well. So just hold those for a second and we'll get to those after the presentation. So for the agenda tonight, I'm going to be covering what the project is, why we're building it, and the expected results. So I want to take a second to emphasize that construction is a dynamic process and the information that is covered in this presentation is subject to change. So for this project, we'll be replacing roadway pavement in certain sections along the Sepulveda Pass. So this project will repair existing infrastructure. There will also be ADA curb ramp improvements as well as guardrail upgrades. This project will be starting construction in spring, summer 2025 with an expected completion date in winter 2028, 2029. So the contractor for this project is a joint venture between CA Rasmussen and Vanguard Construction. This is a map of the project, which extends from Victory Boulevard to Wilshire Boulevard. And again, this project will be replacing sections of lanes along this stretch. So this is an example of the current pavement conditions on Interstate 405. Here we have another example, and this project is to improve pavement conditions for motorists and enhance safety along this highly traveled corridor. So moving on to traffic expectations, there are no weekday daytime lane closures for this project. So Monday through Friday, there will be lane closures no earlier than 9 p.m. to open no later than 6 a.m. However, I want to point out that many of these closures are restricted from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. And for specific details on these, please sign up for notifications about this project because I'll be sending out updates about the specific areas and when these closures are scheduled. So other closures for special occasions, for special operations, will have little to no anticipated delays to the traveling public. There are about 20 to 25 extended weekend lane closures as part of this project. These will last for about 55 hours, and I want to take a second to emphasize that these are not 55-hour full closures, and during these weekend closures there will be 2 to 3 lanes open in each direction, and these will last from about 10 p.m. Friday to 5 a.m. Monday. So moving on to our traffic management plan, Caltrans is sensitive to the challenges facing motorists in Los Angeles, which is why we've planned this project to have lane closures outside of peak travel times to mitigate the impacts of construction. There are other measures that we're taking to proactively address potential delays, including raising awareness about the project and having message signs that can be adjusted based on changing conditions on the road. For the extended weekend closures, we'll be using LADOT traffic control officers, tow trucks, and contraflow. Caltrans continues coordinating with the Palisades recovery effort and will have a construction moratorium during LA 28 and other special events. So here's an example of the alternative routes for the extended weekend lane closures. Again, 2 or 3 lanes will remain open, and we want to provide those lanes primarily for local travel and encourage regional travelers to use other routes as seen on these maps. And these maps can also be found on the project website, which is linked in the chat. So once complete, this project will enhance the safety for all customers and preserve and extend the life of the existing pavement and improve ride quality. So once construction starts, I'll be sending out traffic advisories for the closures, which will also be posted on our social media pages, along with graphics of any detour routes when those are applicable. There's also a website for this project, which again is linked in the chat, and it will be updated as needed. That image on the right is an example of what the traffic advisory news releases will look like. And if you have signed up to receive those, that is what they'll look like in your email once those begin. There's also a specific inbox that I set up for this project. So if you have questions after tonight, please reach out to that email, which is repave.405@dot.ca.gov. So construction for the Interstate 405 Pavement Rehabilitation Project will not occur during peak travel times. Partial closures will be happening where at least 2 lanes will remain open. And Caltrans continues to coordinate with the Palisades fire recovery effort. The majority of construction will not overlap with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers work hours, which are 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. So for LA 28, all construction activities will be suspended for 3 months during the summer. Interstate 405 is also part of the Games Route Network. The Games Route Network is a network of roads that are designated for the use of Games vehicles traveling between official accommodation venues, competition venues, and other key non-competition venues. So construction projects follow moratoriums put in place during special events and holidays, and Caltrans works with its partners to determine moratoriums for special events, including the 2026 World Cup and the 2027 Super Bowl. So Caltrans is also coordinating with the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, or Metro. The Metro I-405 Express Lanes project is a separate project than this pavement rehabilitation project, and Metro is considering several alternatives and is scheduled to select one of them in 2027. The I-405 Express Lanes project construction phase is scheduled to begin at the earliest in 2029, and closures are not set to overlap with this project. Depending on the alternative that's selected for Metro's project, it's actually necessary for Caltrans to complete this pavement project first. So thank you all for listening to that presentation. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to some questions. If you do scan this QR code that's on the screen, that will take you to the form to sign up for notifications for this project. And if you do have questions, you can reach out again to that email, repave.405@dot.ca.gov. Okay, perfect. So thank you everyone again. We're gonna go ahead and get to some questions in the chat. So one of those questions is from, let's see, Glenn Bailey. Will concrete segments be repaired using concrete or asphalt? Let's see. So asking about the materials that are being used for this project.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that, Lauren. I was waiting to see if you were going to call on me, but yeah,
Yep, go
as
for it.
Lauren mentioned, that's all good. As Lauren mentioned, the intent of this project is to replace in kind. So to put it simply, wherever you see currently joint plane concrete pavement, that's what we will replace it with, and where you see hot mix asphalt, that's what we'll replace it with the exception that probably the drivable surfaces, if there are any conventional asphalts, they'll be switched out for rubberized.
Thank you, Sam. Let me see. And if any of the participants would like to ask their question out loud, please raise your hand and I'll be able to ask you to unmute. So that is another option that we have as well. Oh, perfect. All right, let's see. Lori, you have your hand raised. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Allow me to speak. During the construction of the extra lane, the HOV lane on the 405, one of the biggest problems for those of us who live in the Santa Monica Mountains is not poor notice of closure. So if you're coming like north on the 405 past Wilshire, the signage needs to be at least 2 ramps ahead, because people were having to travel all the way into the valley and double back because the signage was either so obscure, like a real small sign to the right that you wouldn't see if there's a truck next to you. So that's incredibly important, that there are at least 2 ramps ahead, that like Mulholland Drive is closed, ahead, would be very, very helpful to this project. And also being very concerned about the timing. Okay, you gave us the timing on the closures, but what time did they start setting up the cones? Because that was also a huge problem, that the cones would start the hour before. So that, basically here on the 405 in the Santa Monica Mountains and the Sepulveda Pass, it's always busy. There's no time that it's not busy. So those are great concerns about those of us who live in the Santa Monica Mountains. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Lori.
I can take that question. Thank you, Lori. Of course, we are going to have multiple signs for any closure that's going to take place for this project, especially for the 55-hour closures. We are going to have at least 32 signs, portable message sign throughout the area. I don't know if Lauren, if you can share that.
What would you like? Which one would you like, Diari? I'm managing the screen at this time. Which one would you like, brother?
The one for detouring through the freeway network, if you don't mind.
Yes.
As you see, so the main aim for this, for the detouring of motoring public, is not through the local streets. It's going to be through the main route or main freeway network that we have. So we are going to have signs from all the way from Orange County, from the south, if you're talking about, advising people to take different routes, that there's a closure, there might be congestion on 405, so they can take alternate route like 710, 110, what have you, as you can see on the screen, the left, and we take them back to 101. So only people that live within the 405 between 101 and 10 are going to be, of course, utilizing 405. The rest, we strongly advise to read messages and be aware of it. And just like Lauren said, please look at the project website. And also, we do have Quick Map app. Please download it. That would give you a heads up about any closure anywhere, not only this project, anywhere within our district, Ventura and LA County, that we are concerned about now at this moment. And on the right, you see the one for signage for southbound. Of course, these are only for the 55 hours. The regular nightly closure, there will be signage as well, but probably not as extensive. So if you go to the, I don't know if you have the next slide.
Which one would you like? Would you like the one? Would you like the one
with the PCMSs, the location of the PCMSs, if you don't mind? Yeah, this one. As you see, the red dots, as you see, are portable message signs that we are going to use as a supplementary to the, in addition to the fixed message signs that you see regularly on the freeways. These are additional ones that we are going to be placing on before any decision-making point, so people can take different routes. Same thing, the blue ones are for the southbound. So at certain times, if both directions, as you, Lauren, mentioned, that we might have contraflow, which means both certain lanes on northern and southbound are going to be simultaneously closed, but 2 to 3 lanes are going to be open in each direction regardless. So in that case, all these signs are going to be in place, and they're going to be having that message on them to notify the public, the motoring public, that we do have work and closures on 405. So that's a legitimate concern that Lori raised, and that's how we address it. And of course, we are going to be vigilant about any certain congestion that may occur during the closures, and we are going to be addressing them accordingly.
So Lori, I think you're possibly still unmuted. Just wanted to make sure that your question did get answered.
Yes, I'm more concerned about local traffic for the people who live here than people commuting. Because people commuting, if you're in Orange County or Ventura County, you'll see the signs, and hopefully people will not come this way. But 5 years of the HOV lane construction made most of us crazy. Because, open, is it not open? And again, proper notice 2 ramps ahead if your ramp is closed. It's just really important. And also the idea of, at what time will they start setting up the cones to allow for the work, which is obviously really important. But, if the work is starting at 9 p.m., you can't start putting the cones out at 8 because there's still tremendous traffic of people commuting home.
No, just the
May I take that? Only
Sure,
because it's
yeah, go ahead.
implementation in the field.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
go ahead, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that as far as the Lori, what I heard as part of your concerns is not only about the extended weekend closures, but maybe also part of our routine closures. I heard you mention that you would like to see when we have ramp closures, you would like to have notification a couple of ramps ahead of the closed ramp. I also heard you talk a lot about advanced notification the night of, but I wanted to kind of highlight that Public Information Office does provide a lot of great information the week prior for pretty much every day of the week coming up, which would help the local traffic kind of plan their affairs accordingly. And as far as placing of cones prior to the time that we described, although the trucks may be on the shoulder prior to, say, 11 p.m. when the closures plan to kind of start taking lanes, they may be on the shoulder, but they are not permitted to place any cones within the traveling lanes. In other words, begin closing the lane until the times that we described. Does that make sense, Lori? Like you may see
yes.
them.
Thank
You
you
may
very
see
much,
them.
because that was not what happened with the HOV project.
And I want to make sure I understand your concern accurately of what you're describing was the bad experience. Was that, for example, you would see a notification from a public outreach, and then they would start taking the lanes before the time that was advertised.
That's
I
correct.
can assure you.
That's correct.
Assure you that. Well, I don't. I always avoid always, and I never say never. So I just want to tell you that to the best of our ability to control, the times in the specifications, we report on the contractor's compliance. So, if such an event did happen, it would be outside of our direction, right? And they would be followed up accordingly with the contractor.
Great. Thank you very much. It's a very good explanation. Appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.
So much, Lori. I think we have another person with their hand raised. Jonathan, let's see if you can unmute and ask your question.
My name is Jonathan Brand. I'm the director of the Bel Air Association, and I think one of the main things is what do you consider to be peak traffic? If you've ever been on 405, I mean, it's like 6:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then on the weekends. So that's one thing. So that'll definitely drive people off to other canyon routes, whether it's Roscommare, Beverly Glen, Woodcliff in the Valley, et cetera, et cetera. Will Caltrans during, those times be funding traffic control officers? Because currently just the gridlock to get over Mulholland on any of those routes is unbearable. And there has to be some sort of relief while you're doing the work. So I just wanted to know what the contingency was for that. I think some of it has kind of been answered in the previous questions, but I just wanted to kind of expand on it. Thank you so much.
I just want to make sure I understand the nature of the question clearly. When you talk about what do we consider to be peak hours, I just want to answer from my perspective in the construction field office, and then I do want to hear from Diari, only because, of course, traffic management would be the most appropriate to define that. But as we mentioned before, during Monday through Friday operations, we do not expect any daytime closures. Closures will be constrained to 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. and most of them are from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. Okay, so I just want to make that point that during the week there will be no interaction with critical rush hour traffic. And as far as the extended weekend closures, I guess I want to make sure that is what you're asking about, right? Specifically, the extended weekend closures.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yes, I'm just learning about the project, so I may have missed the beginning where the weekdays would only be in the middle of the night. So that's great. But yeah, on the week
Yes.
too, on the weekends, you do have a lot of traffic too. So yes, I would want to know what kind of relief you would get in that situation.
So again, I do want to hear from you, Diari, because this is, of course, your area of expertise as far as the traffic patterns. But then I also want to talk a little bit about our implementation in the field when you're finished,
Okay.
regarding what we do in the field to adapt to the changing conditions.
Jonathan, as Sam mentioned, during daytime, regardless of what peak hours are, we are cognizant of the importance of 405 and the high traffic on 405. So we cannot define, say, okay, this from 6 to 9 a.m. or from 3 to 6 are the peak hours for 405. Actually, when traffic starts building up, it's a whole day. So that's why closures only happens during the first cone will go down weeknights at 9, not before 9 o'clock, and most of the time 10 or 11. So we have tried our best to not affect traffic adversely as much. So of course, with any construction project comes some inconveniences, but we have tried to minimize it as much as possible. So that's why during daytime there is no closure. The earliest a cone would be on the street on the roadway is 9 o'clock. Some days, some nights would be 10, some others would be 11. For the extended weekend closures that we are going to close from Friday night at 10 o'clock p.m. until Monday morning 5 o'clock, there will be traffic officers deployed at every intersection. At least two of them, two traffic officers for each major intersection throughout the detour routes within the city of LA. And those are going to be City of LA's traffic officers. But we are, of course, Caltrans supporting it. Caltrans is going to subsidize for those for the expenses of those officers, as well as we are going to adjust the lights along the detour routes. That's another thing that we have coordinated with the City of LA, and thankfully they came forward, and we are on high collaboration for this project to minimize the adverse effect on traffic as much as possible. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, and Dari, thank you for that. So I guess that really does address the notion of peak traffic, and what we do at the department to kind of keep our eye on that in the design phase. And so that's what Diari worked on, and that's what he furnished to the construction phase. But then once we're in construction, and your concern is we are running our extended weekend closures, and should those other routes get impacted? Well, this is where our critical partnership with City of Los Angeles and implementation, including their DOT, is so critical, because during that time, the Caltrans inspectors, the contractors, are all going to be monitoring the traffic along 405 and really what kind of diversion we're getting. If the traffic starts backing up on 405, we take note of that. If we see that any one of our strategies is not working for some reason, we do confer back to DTM and we tell them, you know what, when we noticed at that time when we started the closure or whatever maneuver we were coordinating, we noticed that the results weren't what we wanted. And there are times we make adjustments. I guess what I'm trying to express to you is although we take a lot of time and care and resource in planning the work, it doesn't mean that the planning stops. We keep monitoring and we adjust as necessary. I also heard part of the question talk about the funding. Kenny, did you want to expand on that at all as far as the DOT officers?
Hi. For the funding for the local LAC for the help during the 55-hour closure, we did has the funding for them set aside the money so that they can help to furnish those traffic control officer, and it's also they help to adjust the lighting at each intersection when to get the traffic go smooth and minimize the delay during those 55 hours closure. So yeah, we collaborate with LA City very closely on this project. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that detailed explanation, everyone. I would like to go to one of the questions in the chat now. And I think, Sam, this is going to be for you, but could you talk a little bit more about the look ahead schedule and also the schedule for the extended weekend closures? We've had some questions about that.
Sure. And I'm sorry, my PowerPoint tends to keep popping out for whatever reason when I'm trying to go back and forth in the slides. So sure, I'd like to expand on two kind of schedules. Now, I want to make this clear. The schedules that I'm sharing with you right now are the best estimates that we have at this time. I want to make sure to point out that when we have a construction project and we have a construction contractor on board, such as we do here with the Rasmus and Vanguard joint venture, the contractor is in control of their means and methods to complete the project within the time allotted in the contract. Now, we do have plenty of requirements in our specifications that do control and constrain their schedule in ways, but ultimately the contractor's in control of the schedule. So we rely heavily on them transmitting to us accurate information. But again, their accuracy of their information is only based on what they have at that time. Suffice to say, it's a drawn out way of telling you that these things can change. The really good look ahead information that you're going to get is going to come from Public Information Office on a weekly basis because they attend our weekly meeting with our contractor where we get a 3 to 6 week look ahead that is much more detailed and will, kind of share with you specific times that closures will start, specific times they're expected to be picked up. It'll share with you progress on the project. Those weekly disclosures are much better and much more informative than what I'll share with you now. That was a long introduction, but I thought it was necessary to point that out. So as far as this tentative work sequence for the extended weekend closures, this is what we're looking at, through the completion of the planned extended weekend closures. Okay. So you can see the order and you can see the number. You can see we're starting with 9 extended weekend closures on southbound 405 between Ventura and Mulholland to start. So I would say for the next 6 months, our focus is going to be on that southbound. You're always going to have 3 to 4 lanes open in each direction, and there's going to be 9 of those closures estimated at this time. It's also important to note that we do have an incentive and disincentive with the contractor for them to make sure they complete the project in a timely fashion, and it also expresses the time is of the essence to the contractor. In addition to the extended weekend closure look ahead schedule, we have the 6-month look ahead that's for the more routine operations. These are not the extended weekend closures. These are the Monday through Friday light closures that we've been describing to you. So this month we've been focused mostly on mobilization to the contractor yards and other areas within the right of way. Next month we're going to start seeing individual slab replacements, and there'll also be some asphalt paving. That'll continue on, but you'll see in August that we're planning on maybe getting some electrical and guardrail work going. And you can see that pattern just kind of continues. What's important to note is the further out you get, the more variability there can be in that schedule. I hope that provided you some indication for what you were looking for.
Yeah, that's great, Sam. And I also just want to send a reminder that if you do want to receive those, more specific schedules in your email, please sign up to be on the notification list if you haven't already. That link is in the chat. And if you've already signed up and you already received an email about this meeting, you're all good to go. You don't need to sign up again. But just to get those notifications in your inbox, you can definitely sign up to receive those. They'll also be posted on our social media pages as well. So the information is going to be widely distributed and you'll be getting those specific updates once we have them. I'd like to go back now to some of the people who have their hand raised. I believe Lorna has their hand raised, so I'm going to ask you to unmute.
I just had a question about whether you'll be somehow collaborating with the map apps like Waze and Apple Maps and Google Maps so that during congestion they're not necessarily sending people into the side streets in the Santa Monica Mountain area, in the neighborhoods.
Yeah, so I send out all of those weekly notifications to representatives with, Apple Maps, so they should have those updated. I think Diari also mentioned Quick Maps, and we'll put that link in the chat as well. But that is a great resource to use for the kind of current road conditions that are out there on the road. So that is kind of hopefully that helped answer your question. All right. We're gonna go next. I see Glenn Bailey has their hand raised. Glenn, I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
The question I put in chat and the answer, and thank you for that, that you're going to replace like for like in terms of concrete versus asphalt. But I just wanted to clarify because I don't have all the lanes on this segment of the 405 memorized, but I do know that there's other Caltrans freeway segments where a paved asphalt segment stops and starts up again with concrete, and or vice versa. And invariably the differential between those two materials and the weights of the vehicle, et cetera, causes a displacement, a bump, or something that disrupts the smooth traffic flow. So again, don't have this segment memorized, but if there are any lanes that have that you're working on, I hope that you can avoid there being this abrupt, asphalt to concrete or concrete to asphalt. And hopefully if the segment's not too long, it can all be made concrete because it does seem to last longer, but I also know it costs more. So maybe somebody knows, in fact, that's an issue. And especially, this is not so much for the on and off ramps because generally going at a slower speed, whatever, but certainly in terms of the moving lanes, northbound, southbound on the freeway, it is an issue. And again, I'm referencing a specific example nearby. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Glenn, the concern is actually I should say the department is acutely aware of the quality of the roadway profile is directly related to the quality of the riding experience. The department is acutely aware of that, and I want to really focus and zero in on your question and your concern. You're referencing instances where we have a transverse joint between asphalt roadway and concrete roadway and jointed plane concrete pavement. Right. That condition occurs throughout the 405 in various locations, and we have tried and true standard details to join those two surfaces in a competent manner that has reasonable longevity. But I think what's really important about this project is to point out that if we're not going to replace the concrete or not going to replace the asphalt, everything gets a profile, record, and acceptance. In other words, we have specialized equipment that comes out and rides through the areas that have been worked on and kind of spits out to us a numerical way to measure the actual smoothness of the roadway. And that is one of the contractual criteria of the contractor's work. And I'll also mention to you that even the existing concrete surfaces that will not get replaced will get a grind, a profile grind, just specifically to smooth it out. Now, I can't think of specific examples in the district that were completed recently because, they weren't my specific projects. But I can assure you that if you drive on recently completed roadways, you can tell that quiet ride. And that's what we're going to endeavor for here on the 405 as well.
Perfect.
I saw he followed up. He said that the concrete, he says the transverse joints deteriorate over time. Well, joints generally have an opportunity to spall out, but as I said, like the details that we're implementing are intentional. And they're not, and I want to also point something else out that you do have some instances that you may be thinking of where the intended pavement is actually jointed plain concrete pavement, but maintenance to respond to an issue and make the roadway safe again responded by doing an asphalt overlay. In those instances, we would not be replacing with asphalt, right? In those instances where you have maybe 2 or 3 slabs that have a asphalt overlay just to provide a competent riding surface in the interim, we would not be having that condition prevail, if that helps provide you. There you go. Very good.
Thank you. And I just want to remind everyone that if you do have a question, again, put it in the chat. We're monitoring that to make sure we get to answer everyone's question. And if you do want to ask your question out loud or it's a little more specific, just raise your hand and we're going through a list. There are multiple people with their hands raised. So we appreciate everyone being patient. Next, I believe, is Peter. So Peter, would you please unmute? And give me 1 second. There we go. Hopefully you're able to unmute, Peter. Perfect.
Wasn't letting me unmute myself. I have a very simple question. Over the life of the project, will each and every one of the lanes end up being renovated? Yes?
Okay.
Can you
Well,
hear me?
yes, sir. I was taking a moment to really think about your question. You're asking if essentially, do we touch every square inch of the 405 between Victory and Wilshire?
Exactly.
The answer is no. However, pavement delineation, for example, does extend through the full project limits and will be, absolutely. And as I mentioned before, the lion's share of the JPCP, the existing concrete pavement, does get a profile grind. So I just don't, as I mentioned before in this meeting, I'm very careful to not speak with so much absolution to say that every square inch of the 405 will be rehabilitated in this project. I don't think this budget would allow for that. But certainly, we do expect there to be enhanced roadway safety and improved ride quality throughout the entire freeway. Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Peter. And I believe we already talked about the start date for this project. Someone was asking if we could go into a little more detail on the contraflow. I think we have some photos. Maybe Sam, if you could pull those up, and Sam or Diari maybe go into a little bit more detail. And this would be specifically for those extended weekend lane closures.
Diari, go ahead, man.
Sure, thank you. Well, the contraflow is somehow is an innovative way of handling traffic, as you may know that there are certain segments. Of course, we mentioned the beginning there would be 20 to 25 extended weekend closures. between 6 to 10 of them are going to, we are going to implement this contraflow construction strategy, which means we are going to be closing one direction completely, one direction of traffic completely, and divert traffic to the other side. And that's going to be, we have implemented that type of strategy before. This is the picture on the screen. You see that just the recent picture was taken from our 710 project. That's the beginning of it. That tapering is a regular tapering, just like any other closure, any lane closure. So that comes closing one lane, then the second, then the third, up to until we close the whole thing. Or there might be one lane on one side and two lanes on the other side, or just two lanes in for that direction, 3 lanes for the southbound, for example. And there will be a movable concrete barrier separating both directions of travel. So vehicles are not going to be facing each other on the freeway with cones. There will be a movable barrier. You are not going to feel that closure, and that's going to happen only on those occasions. As I said, between 6 to 10 of them, probably 8. On 8 occasions, we are going to implement this strategy, and that's going to be on the south portion of that segment, closer to 10, north of 10, meaning not at the very north portion of it. This should be a very easy transition with multiple signs in place, directing traffic where to go, where to merge, and how to go. That's the end of it, and only for that segment, only for the short distance where the work is going to occur for that date, not the entire segment from beginning to the end. So, and I want to make sure, reemphasize, no two consecutive ramps are going to be closed, whether on ramp or off ramp. So implementing the strategy is something is new and old. So we have implemented it on other projects. Just recently we have started using it, and so this is going to be helping us to implement the project without having the necessarily going to shut down one direction of travel completely. So this is to utilize the other side, the other direction, for moving lanes from this side to the other. So that's a strategy that we are implementing. As I mentioned previously, there will be multiple signs in the area advising traffic to avoid traffic on 405 and utilizing our freeway network. If there is a spillover, we will have, of course, enough signage to detour traffic from one off ramp to the next on ramp, utilizing all the strategies that we mentioned previously.
Yeah, and thanks, Diari. And I'd like to expand a little bit on the use of the movable barrier system. And I also wanted to highlight something else too. You know, Diari had mentioned that the use of contraflow that we just looked at in those slides, and also the movable barrier system, allow for us to do this intensive work while still maintaining some level of service on the freeway. That is very true. An additional benefit to this procedure is just the enhanced safety, both of the motoring public and of the workers themselves. And that is a very big deal to us, of course. And finally, the use of this innovative method, this movable barrier system, you can see that it's a machine that picks up smaller segments of concrete barrier, picks them up and moves them over during live traffic. This is a safe and proven method that's used throughout the state. You may have interacted with a system like this on the Coronado Bridge, Golden Gate Bridge, or I believe in other areas of the state, and even here locally. So it's a very safe and proven system that we're implementing here during these extended weekend closures. I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you for going through that. I think someone said they might have missed the beginning part of the presentation, but they were asking, I think Anthony was asking about the projected start date. So once this project starts, I'll be sending out notifications. The general timeline, I believe that Sam shared a little bit earlier, was that the overnight lane closures would begin in July. So that again is a projected timeline, and the specifics will be sent out once those get a little bit closer. And you can sign up to receive project notifications. That link is in the chat, and I can post it again. And you can get those exact dates when those closures will begin. So I hope that helps answer your question, Anthony. And if not, please raise your hand, and we would love to unmute you and hear a little bit more about your question. Let's see. And then Peter is asking, during the contraflow, can one of the directions be completely closed? Maybe Peter, you could raise your hand and help clarify that a little bit.
Yeah, because
I just unmuted you, so.
yes, Peter. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Peter, but we cannot hear you.
You're still muted.
Yeah, I've sent a request to unmute, so if you're having difficulties.
You know, maybe I can just address the question to the best of my ability. I think I heard the question to be, can one direction be closed during contraflow? I think that's what I heard, Lauren. Am I correct?
Yes, that was the question that was typed in the chat.
Very good. So the entire purpose of contraflow is to allow us to work on one side of the freeway while still maintaining a level of service in that direction. For example, when we have our when we want to work on our southbound direction, actually, let me take that back. We're talking southbound direction in the south portion of the freeway, right, DRE? The south
Correct.
portion of the freeway, meaning closer to Sunset and Wilshire. And for example, if we're working on the southbound direction at that location, we would be closing southbound completely and pushing some of that traffic, maybe 2 of those lanes, 3 of those lanes, onto the northbound lanes via contraflow. Kind of like the example that we showed at, oh, I see now why they keep kicking me out because of the way we set up the presentation. Very good. So as we show here, you know, we would be working on an entirely closed side of the freeway and utilizing the other side of the freeway to split the traffic between the 2 directions. Peter, I hope I answered the question to the best that I could. I hope that addressed your question.
He said that addressed the question, so thank you, Sam. We have another question in the chat. I believe it's from Kaja. I apologize if I'm saying that incorrectly.
I saw that question, yeah. I saw the
They're
question.
asking if the air quality be affected during construction. So that's a little bit more of an environmental question, but
Absolutely. You know, I just want to point out a few things. You know, I grew up in the area. This is my home, and I'm particularly sensitive to the notion of air quality, given that I have a toddler. And of course, you know, the environment, it affects all of us. It's not something that you can disrespect and not feel the effects. So I just want to point out my intent and sort of my personal investment in the matter. But the department takes environmental commitments very seriously. Environmental Planning and Stewardship Division is a very, you know, critical stakeholders in the department. They're with the project development team, which is what we call the overall team it takes to deliver a project to you. Although I am one engineer, DRE is another. There are dozens of engineers, environmental specialists, biologists, you name it. We've got the technical expertise. And in fact, I want to just take a moment to point out some of that technical expertise here, and these are just some of those experts. The particular individual the individuals, I should say, that would be most concerned with your question are Selena Oliveri, the project biologist, and Josh Miller, the environmental construction liaison. The environmental construction liaison is a critical resource to the resident engineer to help keep up with all the environmental commitments the department has during a construction project. One of the many environmental commitments in excess of bird nesting surveys and other restrictions, light restrictions, are air quality and monitoring. Our standard specifications oblige the contractor to confine their operations and control their own means and methods to comply with all air quality regulations. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of weight to the response to say that it's not just a lip service of one individual. No, this is the entire way that the department does business. Air quality, stormwater runoff, and respecting all other aspects of the environment are a big deal to us. Absolutely. I hope that gives you some comfort.
Thanks, Sam. We appreciate that. I'm not seeing any more new questions as of now. So if you do have a question about the project, please type it in the chat and raise your hand. We would love to answer your question. So if anyone else has any more questions, please put them in now. And again, if you do want to sign up for notifications for this project for those specific closures, as we've been talking about this evening, that QR code right there will take you to the form to sign up. You can put in your email and phone number, and we would love to send you updates about the project. If you do have any questions about the project after the meeting, we have a specific inbox set up for the project. It's right on the screen right there, repave.405@dot.ca.gov. And we would love to hear from you if you do have any questions. Let me see if anyone else. Oh, we do have some people who have raised their hand. All right. Larry, let me see if you can unmute, please, and ask your question. Perfect.
Question is as follows. There will be times, I'm sure, when it's the right lanes that are closed and the left lanes that are open in one particular direction or another. And my question is, during those times, will the HOV lane be open to all traffic?
It's a very good question, Larry. Well, to put it succinctly, the contractor has control of the operation. Okay. In our special provisions in our contract, we specify to the contractor the number of through lanes that they have to provide at all times. So what that means is that the contractor may elect to implement mixed use in the HOV to achieve those lanes if they so choose. But to do so, they would have to implement additional signage per our standard plans to make it abundantly obvious to the public that those lanes are in fact mixed use. It also includes covering some of the carpool signage just to make sure that it's abundantly clear. So I know, Larry, that sometimes we want to know more specifics, but until the contractor plans their operation, we won't know for sure.
Okay. Okay, I'm glad that your spec requires a certain number of through lanes so that he can't say my 2 lanes are the HOV, which only the carpools can use, and one other. I call that 2.
Yes, sir. And I'd like to, and Larry, I just want to really make sure I'm getting this right. And this is actually kind of a neat thing to expose the public to be very transparent about it. You know, when these things come up, the first thing I do is I pick up the phone and I call who? DRE, DTM, right? I mean, these are our critical support to help us understand how these closure patterns were envisioned during the design phase. So although I do know it pretty well, I do want to turn back and see if DRE has anything to add.
Well, just that you said it all. Just to emphasize, yes, during those times when a certain number of lanes are required to be open, HOV lane is going to be converted to a mixed flow lane.
Can be.
Yes, more vehicles can utilize that lane. So yes, we do have considered that, and just like Sam said, that's up to the contractor. If he cannot provide enough number of lanes and he wants to utilize the HOV as a lane, we are going to convert it. Yes, we do, and with that proper signage, we are going to be covering the existing carpools or the HOV lane only. So that's how it goes.
Scary.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Larry. We appreciate the question. I think we have a question from Jean, and Jean, maybe you want to raise your hand and help clarify this a little bit more. But Jean was asking, besides using our own vehicle, are there other alternatives to get over the 405? Jean, I don't know if you want to raise your hand and help clarify that question for us a little bit more, or if Sam or Diari or Kenny have a answer for that.
You know, I want to start off. Well, first of all, I want to provide opportunity. Did you say it was what was the gentleman's name?
I believe it's Jean, but I don't see
Did you want to
them
clarify
raising their
further, or do
hand.
you want us to just jump into it? I can jump into it if you'd like.
Why don't you get started, and if they raise their hand and are able to speak, I'll go ahead and unmute them. So take it
Not a
away,
problem.
Sam.
Not a problem. I would say that this is another one of those two-part kind of responses, and I'll start from construction aspect, and of course I'll always rely on support from Diari to help clarify. But one of the critical things is that during all of our closures, Division of Traffic Management provides us in the traffic management plan sort of a series of notifications and partners that we have to confer with. Right? Public information also has access and good, strong contact with transit providers. So during any of these closures, all of those multiple modes of transportation will be notified to the best of our ability and awareness. Okay. Now that's just where I interact with it from a construction perspective. But I think your question was more specifically, what options do you have during extended weekend closures? And those would be what's available to you through multimodal. In other words, LA Metro, LA DOT, there's bus routes that are available to you. We do not have any special accommodation in this project for any special shuttles during the extended weekend closures, specifically because we do have levels of service available on the freeway. Diari, if you wanted to add to that.
No, but you said just exactly the whatever public transportation, public transit is out there. Those are the ones we do not have any extra modes of transportation for this project, because we do not, just like we mentioned previously, we do not have complete closure, and we do not expect delays to be more than 30 minutes. We are targeting that. We are hoping for that. We of course, it depends on you to spread out the word to your relatives, your family members, your friends, to please read those messages that you see on the side, on the shoulder of the freeway, and comply and try to go by the guidance. You know, if you see it and it tells you, okay, there's congestion, there's a closure, take a different route, please do. So please spread that word. And we have the tendency not to ignore those signs. That is very critical. We need to achieve that less than 30 minutes of delay. That's our goal. Of course, that in conjunction with safety, that's the department's priority for all the commuters. But again, to answer your question specifically, if you are asking about if you have any additional modes of transportation dedicated for this project, no. I have to say no. We do not have any modes, but we have collaboration with those public transportation agencies, and they do know. They are aware of the. They will be aware of the closures as they come, and hopefully they will increase their number of buses or what have you. And we are encouraging them to do so.
Thank you so much for helping answer that question. I think we have another person with their hand raised. Irene Sandler, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Irene, I sent a request for you to unmute, so let me know if you can unmute, and we would love to hear your question. All right, maybe we're having a little bit of difficulty there. We're going to go ahead and move to the next person, which is Peter. Peter, let's see if you can unmute.
Oh, finally, thank you. I have two questions. One is, will anything happen to Sepulveda Boulevard, or will it be untouched, everywhere untouched?
Sepulveda Boulevard is not the department's right-of-way. It is not included in this project.
Great. And then will the interchanges between the 405 and 101 be blocked at any time?
The interchange. Could you please expand on that? Are you asking if any of the connectors between, any of the 101, 405 connectors, in other words, southbound 405 to southbound 101 or
Yes, exactly, the connectors.
So you're asking if any of those connectors will ever have be closed.
Be blocked during the project.
We do have ability to close connectors at night. And whatever times are allowable in the contract, but we do not have any plans for prolonged closures of those connectors. Again, during the extended weekend closures, it's possible that a connector may be impacted if that particular extended weekend closure is spanning a location. I don't recall at this time, to tell you that, to be very honest with you, and Lauren, I'm more than happy to take an action item to respond to the gentleman at a later time. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, so it says that they could be blocked, but you'll provide notices well in advance that they're blocked so we can get off and take the surface routes.
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you.
And Peter, if you do have more questions after this meeting, just make sure to reach out to that repave.405@dot.ca.gov email, and I'd be happy to work with Sam to get you answers to any future questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter. All right, Irene, I think I did see you try to unmute, so I'm going to send another request, and we would love to hear your question, and we appreciate you being patient. Perfect. Thank you, Irene. Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you, Irene.
Hi, thank you too. I wanted to ask about how this project dovetails with the Express Lane project. I would hate to see you do beautiful repaving only to find it changed by the Express Lane project.
Yeah, so I can, provide a little more insight. I actually just talked with the people at Metro a few days ago, and they're still exploring different alternatives for this project. I think they're still in their kind of public feedback phase, and I'll put the link to their project in the chat as well. So if you do want to learn more about that project specifically and reach out to anyone at Metro, that'll be in the chat. But they're still exploring different alternatives for this project, and the latest that I've heard is they're going to select one in 2027. And so, it just depends on what alternative they choose. I believe one of the alternatives that they are exploring, one of the options they're exploring right now, is just to create those express lanes through signage and restriping, and so that would not change the repavement efforts for this project. So it does depend on what alternative they choose, and I think that the public can definitely give Metro feedback on what alternative they would like to see for that project. Yeah, and I think contact information is in the chat, so I'm sure you can reach out to Metro and give them feedback for what you would like to see for that project.
We are looking forward to your doing a great project, and we would just like to keep it great.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there anything else that you wanted to ask about?
Nope. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Irene. We appreciate the questions and feedback. I'm not seeing any other new questions in the chat right now, so if you do have a question or would like to, oh, I think someone did ask me. Oh, someone's asking how many attendees. There's about 77 people who are at this meeting. So, yeah, thank you for the question. Then that was from Glenn Bailey. If there are any other questions, again, please put those in the chat or in the Q&A box or raise your hand to ask those out loud. Irene, did you have another question you wanted to say?
No, thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Irene. I think Peter Spitzer has another question. So Peter, I'm going to request that you unmute.
Yes, thank you. You're very tactful, but I'm just trying to understand, is there a chance that the express lane, the HOV lane will become the express lane and the express lane will become a paid lane? Is that a possibility that's being considered?
Well, I would definitely reach out to Metro with that question since that is their project. There's just been kind of general questions about when that project would be starting, and that's why I kind of touched on it a bit. But any specific questions about what Metro has planned for that project, definitely reach out to Metro with those questions, and their contact information is in the chat, so you can send them an email or give them a call, and I'm sure they would love to hear any public feedback on their projects. Hopefully that helped answer your question, Peter. If you have any other questions, let us know.
Yes. Yes, it just means dealing with a whole other structure. And I don't see I just see the YouTube channel and the web page. Links, Sophie Stadium, details. I just don't see it. Is there any chance you could re-enter the information?
Of course, yes. And if you go into you might be in the Q&A section. If you go into the chat section, at the bottom of, yeah, it should be in there, but I am happy to reshare that again. And let me see if I can put that in the Q&A portion for you as well.
Thank you. I'll pick
You're
it up
welcome.
over there. It should be easier.
You're welcome. Yeah, if you want to type that, oh, I think we just put it back in the, oh, perfect. Thank you, Kenny. I think it's in the chat, and I'll reply to one of the questions with that Metro contact information. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or topics that anyone would like covered? I don't see anyone else with their hand raised, but we do want to make sure that we're, answering everyone's questions. So if there are any future questions, please raise your hand and put it in the chat, and we would love to engage with you. The project website, again, is linked in the chat, and there's a whole list of answers to frequently asked questions that, can range from what's happening during the Olympics and stuff like that. So if you do have any questions, you can always view that FAQ page on our website. It's a great resource for this project, and it'll be updated with more information as needed. So make sure to check that out. And that link is in the chat. So if anyone needs a link to that. I'm going to give it another minute or two, but obviously I want to respect everyone's time. And if there are no other questions, then, we can kind of wish everyone a good evening, but I'll give it another minute or two. So if you do have a question about the Interstate 405 Pavement Rehabilitation Project, please raise your hand or you'll put your question in the chat now. Perfect. Let's see. Link to the presentation. Yes, the presentation is actually already on the project website. So if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there is a link to the presentation. And I think we might have had one of the slides updated. So that presentation will be updated with the most recent version. Also, this meeting is being recorded, so if you missed the beginning of it or just want to watch it again, that'll be on our YouTube page, posted on the Caltrans District 7 YouTube page in the coming days. So the presentation and the recording of this meeting will be made available to anyone who would like to see it. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions or hands raised. I'll give it maybe another minute or so, but I appreciate everyone for joining this presentation and taking the time to learn more about this upcoming pavement rehabilitation project. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to engage with this project and learn more. All right. Well, with that said, I again want to thank everybody for joining this meeting. If there are any other questions that pop up later, please reach out to that email, repave.405@dot.ca.gov. And we'd love to get your questions answered. But other than that, I want to thank everyone for joining and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you so much, everybody.